Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be looking at every single portal in TFT set 11. So if you guys find the video to be helpful, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and leave a little comment down below. It'll really help out the channel. So the reason knowing all these portals is so important is because basically at the start of every single game, you're going to be confronted with 3 different portal choices. You need to pick the right one to give yourself the best chance of winning the game of TFT. It's really important if you're playing ranked. If you're having a specific build in mind, for example, if you're running something like a bar build, you're going to want to maybe take something like component anvils just to ensure that you can maybe get your rage split early on and really start snowballing the game from an early period. Whereas, for some other builds, you might want something completely different like a 3-cost champion because you want to get like a Yun or Volibear early on. Okay guys, so we're just going to jump into it here. So the first portal is going to be 3 champions. So essentially you start the game with 3 random tier 1 champions. Now this can be good if you're going for like a Caitlyn reroll build or something like this where you need tier 1 champions. But it can also be a bit of a hindrance because 7 other people are getting 3 level 1 champions and they could all also just be Caitlyn, Kog'Maw, things like this, and sort of slow down your build progression. So the next one is 3-cost champion. So you start the game with a random tier 3 champion. This can be really nice and it's also really RNG. So if you want to go a Yun build, you can select this, but the chances are someone else is going to get the Yun and you're going to get something trash that's level 3 like a Soraka, and you're not going to be able to build your build and they're going to go it because they have it so early on. So if you have a build like this in mind, I personally wouldn't take this, but it is personal choice. So then we have Artifact Anvil. So you start with an Artifact Anvil that lets you choose from powerful items with unique effects. So I don't really like Artifact Anvil personally because there is a chance that your Anvil has very horrible items and someone else's has very good items. Obviously in TFT it is 7v1 essentially, and there's basically 7 chances for them to get the best items. And if you get the worst items, you're probably going to lose the game or at least place badly based on that. So I tend to avoid it because I think it's overly RNG and it can really damage your chances of winning. So then we have Ascending Augments. So augments this game will be Silver, Gold, and Prismatic. So this one again is kind of okay. It's something I would take if the other ones are too RNG heavy for me. I would not be too upset about this one. It is quite good if you're trying to go for like that Chinese comp where you basically look for fine vinted and try and build the support anvils. That's something you might want to look into, but other than that, I would generally avoid this one because someone getting a Prismatic right at the end again really increases the RNG, especially if you're winning and they hit something amazing from the Prismatic table. They can basically turn the game around and you'll start losing. So then we have Augment Paired. So every time you select an augment, gain 3 gold. So I quite like this one because it doesn't actually really change the game. For me, what I like is to keep the game as basic as possible and to minimize the RNG factors. So obviously getting your champions is RNG, if you get contested, RNG, things like this. But being able to minimize this as much as possible is always good. So I would always take like a portal that almost does nothing, essentially. So we then have Champion Conference. So every stage you get a champion that fits your team. Now again, this one is very much something I don't like personally, but it can be good if you're confident. So if you're, for example, building a Story Weaver team and you get to like level 9, you're probably going to get an Aurelia given to you. Now that problem is that people are going to tend to hit their champions a lot quicker and they're not going to have to roll as much for it and they can econ much better and still have a very strong team. So I personally don't like giving that one out because if I want to go for something that's like a 3-cost reroll, anything like this, it's going to give me a disadvantage in the late game because people are going to be hitting their 5 costs for free. So then we have Champion Delivery. So twice per stage, gain a high cost champion. The cost increases with the game. Again, I don't really like that because again, it's just giving people high cost champions. They can hit really, really good ones. You can hit really, really poor ones. Increases the RNG drastically. I wouldn't really pick it. We then have Completed Anvil. So this one is again a little bit RNG. If I have the choice of taking something a bit more neutral, I will, but this one isn't that bad because everyone does get an item and there's I think a choice of 5. Component Anvils is one I would generally take every single game. I really like this one. It's probably my favorite one. Essentially, it just means that you can pick at least 2 little components, and it's very important if you're going like a Yun or Volibear build that you get like double Titans and a Bloodthirster. So being able to pick up like one of the Titans or a Bloodthirster immediately is very, very, very helpful. So then we have Crab Reef. So Dancing Crabs replace PvE encounters and drop bonus loot, but crabs on stage 5+ are extremely dangerous. So essentially this is one pretty much everyone picks all the time because you get so much stuff from it, but it is heavily RNG based because of that. So I generally play it because it is very fun and you can get like, a lot of items, a lot of gold. It's quite fun, but if you're trying to climb in ranked, I'd probably definitely avoid it if possible. Reason being is just that people can get, you know, a lot of coins right off the bat. They can get champions, they can get duplicators, they can get, you know, all these components, and maybe someone's build's much stronger with items than your build will be with items. Maybe you're more champion based, and this basically puts a lot of RNG into the game, and you will find it hard to really win and carry in these kinds of games, but that's just my personal preference. Also, at stage 5, if your team isn't as strong as you'd like it to be, you will die to the crab and you will take damage, and if you're at low health, you can potentially be put out of the game by the PvE round. We then have Decrescendo. So basically augments this game will be prismatic, then gold, then silver. So again, I kind of like to avoid this because getting a prismatic augment right off the rip will really benefit one person more than another, definitely. So there are definitely some way better augments, and you might get stuck with the worst one and then just sort of be losing the game from the very beginning, and that's not ideal. We then have duplicator start. So you start the game with a champion duplicator. Now, I don't mind this one. This is exactly the same for every single person. It gives you the same advantage as everyone else. I would take this if the other options are a bit too RNG based, but also you don't really want people duplicating their 5-cost champions. But if there's nothing else, I would not be too upset about taking this one. So then we have Golden Gala, so all augments will be gold tier. This one isn't too bad. It does minimize the RNG a bit because all three are exactly the same. It gives you a chance to basically roll the same sort of strength as someone else. Gold opener, so the first augment will be gold. Again, I don't mind this one at all. It's very minimal RNG, to be honest with you, and it does kind of make it so no one is guaranteed to get a prismatic off the rip, which is kind of nice. So we have item payout. Every time you build an item, you gain 2 gold. So this one isn't too bad. This is kind of a neutral one. Again, it can be a little bit nice if you're going to be slamming items at the start, so it can give you a little bit of an advantage, but it's nothing major that you can't come back from, so I do like picking it. Larger legends, all players start with 115 health, so this one can be good and bad. If you know you're going for like a fast 9 comp, something like this, the more health the better. It gives you more chance to come online and make a comeback. But if you're going for like an early reroll, like a ghostly build where you're rolling at 6, definitely try and avoid that, because you're just going to give people opportunity to stay in the game for longer and basically make a comeback and kill you. So lethal legends deal +1 damage to the enemy after winning combat. This one is again pretty neutral, so although you are dealing +1 damage, +1 is not game changing. Like, you'd have to be defeated 10 times to lose 10 health, and 10 health is essentially just one sort of bad loss in TFT sort of in the later game, so realistically it doesn't do too much. I wouldn't mind taking that one if the other options are too RNG. So loaded carousel, champions on the carousel hold 2 items instead of 1. I quite like that, depending on when it is in the game. So I quite like that one, I don't mind that one. So getting more items on a carousel can be quite nice, because it does sort of negate the RNG factor that you will not be able to, for example, get the sword you need for your bloodthirster, because there might be multiple swords, so it can be helpful in that respect. So loot subscription, every stage all players gain the same random loot from a Halle pool. So I don't really tend to choose this one because I don't like people getting loot. I like people to sort of struggle in the game for everything they have, but it can be okay, and it's not that bad because everyone does get the same thing. So the next one is max interest. So I quite like that one because I quite like to econ to try and get to the end of the game a little bit better, get a little bit more coins. So this can really be a bit of a skill expression one. So if you think you're a better player than the other people, definitely take this, because they're either going to make the mistake of econing too much and they're going to have a really weak board and you're going to get them out early, or they're going to not econ and you're going to get an advantage because you've econed better than them. So this is one where it's not really RNG based, it's more skill based, so I do like selecting that one. So the next one is player health decrease. So you start with 85 player health. Now this can be good if you're rushing a build, so if you're going for the, you know, reroll at 6 ghostly comp, that's a pretty good one, because you're going to be able to put people out much sooner than they should be, and it's going to really stop people making comebacks, so I do like that one. So the next one is pot of gold. So it's stage 6-1, all 11 players split a pot of 120 gold. So I really hate that one. So if you're ahead in the game, if you're winning, if you're pretty much guaranteed to win, say for example it's a 1v1 at this stage, okay, it is quite late in the game, your opponent just gets 60 gold. Maybe he was sitting there with no econ whatsoever, maybe he was definitely not going to hit anything, you were definitely going to put him out. Now he has 60 gold, now he can roll for his golds, now he can, you know, hit 3 stars. I really dislike this one because it just gives someone an opportunity to completely turn the game, and it really just takes away the skill aspect and replaces it with RNG. So if possible, I would always avoid that one. So prismatic party, all augments will be prismatic. This one is heavily RNG based. You can pretty much guarantee a win or loss depending on what prismatic augments you get. I personally try and avoid this one based on that, because you could get absolutely shafted and just not be able to win the game no matter what you do. But on the flip side, I guess you could get 3 really sick ones to get a free win, but Very, very RNG. I don't like that. I like just more skill expression ones than RNG based ones. So there's Prismatic Prelude. So the first augment this game will be Prismatic. I like to avoid that one again because you can get a terrible Prismatic, then get a really good one, and you'll just start losing from the very beginning. So Radiant Blessing, at 40 health, players receive a blessing that contains powerful loot. This occurs at 10 player health in Hyper Roll. So essentially, I do not like that one because it basically rewards players for going to low health first and allows them to make a big comeback. Yes, you do get the same reward whenever you get the 40 health, but the later in the game you reach 40 health, the more damage you will be taking per loss, and it is harder for you to catch up only having that. So a lot of the time this tends to be a Tactician's Crown, which lets you have an extra person on the field. This can be really OP for anything like a Storeweaver build, anything like this Heavenly build. So it really lets them take the top players off streaks, and I really don't like that. I like it to be again skill based. If you're losing, you should continue losing. You shouldn't really just be saved by an augment. So Radiant item, you select one of 5 Radiant items at the start of a game. So I just like this one because basically it can allow someone else to have a much better Radiant item than you. Again, you have to think of these games as being 7v1. There are 7 chances they have a better item than you, and you can lose to basically every single one of them if you're unlucky enough. Obviously you can get a good one. You could maybe, you know, use that to start winning the game early, but you got to think about the odds, and the odds are 7 people versus you. One of them is more than likely every single time you pick this gonna have a better item and defeat you. So Scuttle Puddle, people generally like this one as well. It's pretty much the same as Crab Wave, except the crabs don't kill you. You get so much extra loot. You can get duplicators, components, things like this, a lot more extra gold. It does make the game more fun, but again, if you're playing ranked, you might not want this because it is a little bit more RNG, and it does basically allow the majority of people to hit the majority of their items. So if you know your build is more champion based and synergy based than it is item carried, probably definitely avoid this one. So Silver Symphony, all augments will be silver this game. I kind of like that one, to be fair, because silver augments aren't generally that strong except for Fine Finted, and Fine Finted can be overcome if they don't hit their CZ rot portals. Essentially it is a very RNG comp to go for that, and they could go dead last if they get the wrong items. So I'm actually not above taking Silver Symphony. I do quite like that one. It does make the game quite easy and based on your champions. So then we have Spatula, where you start with a spatula. Now it depends what build you're going. Some builds, if you're going like Ghostly, something like this, where you want to hit 8, it can be quite nice to get a spatula, but I tend to not like to do it because there's a lot of builds out there like Heavenly, things like this, that benefit from 1, whereas a lot of builds benefit from 2. I also don't really like the idea that someone can put in a really strong champion into a random build and just sort of dominate. So for example, we put like a 2-star Ornn in a Storeweaver build. It's going to be, you know, very dominant alongside the Galio. So I would dislike to pick Spatula because it opens up too many weird possibilities in my opinion. So we have Support Anvil, so you get 1 support item. Again, if you can't avoid it, do, because there are some much better support anvils than others, and you could just start the game down badly. So then we have Tactician's Crown. So you start with a Tactician Crown. Now I don't really like this one because basically it lets people get their Storeweaver online much faster, you know, things like this, trick shots online much faster. But it does give everyone the same advantage. It is kind of even. I would take it if the other ones were, you know, very RNG based, but I would also tend to avoid it if possible. So the next one is Tome of Traits. So you gain 1 Tome of Traits at the start of the game, and it lets you pick 1 of 4 emblems. Now this is very RNG again, because if someone gets like a Storeweaver one, you know, they can get their kill online really soon. And if you get like Dryad, really, you know, like Dryad can be kind of strong, but most of the time you're going to get rolled, especially until late game anyway, regardless of your emblem. So I really wouldn't take this one because again, 7v1, they're likely to get something better than you, and you're likely just to get dumpstered by multiple people. So the next one is Trainer Sentinel. So you start off with a Training Sentinel with 3 permanently attached emblems. The Sentinel will wear and benefit from their attached emblems and support items, okay? So I dislike this one a whole lot because there is just the RNG that someone hits some really amazing emblems and you hit really bad ones. Again, I keep saying it, but like, you gotta think 7v1, surely someone's gonna get better stuff than me. And this one will also be really bad if you're choosing not to, you know, be flexible with your comp. So maybe you're a newer player, you have a composition up, you're not too sure what to build, you just want to have a guy there and follow it and try and win the game that way. This one really needs you to be flexible. You really have to take on board that, right, I have these 3 emblems, I need to play around them, even if it's not a normal build or something you would say is good. So training dummy, start the game with a training dummy. I don't mind that one because everyone starts off exactly the same. You get the exact same benefit. It's very, very neutral. And the training dummy doesn't do too much. They get folded very quickly. So treasure armory on stage 4-7, choose a 5-piece package of powerful loot. This occurs on stage 8-1 in hyper roll. So again, personally, I don't like this one, but it can be okay because you can re-roll it so much. Only thing is that, again, someone else can get much better items. Say someone's building a bard build and they have been absolutely unable to get a rage blade. They're gonna go dead last. They're gonna lose the game. This basically opens up that they can re-roll a couple of times and hit a rage blade or hit the opponents for a rage blade and make a big comeback. So you really want to give your opponents no chance to come back in the game. So I would avoid that one. So then we have unit accelerator. So all units gain bonus movement speed and plus 10 attack speed. So I don't mind this one too much because 10 attack speed generally benefits everyone, but obviously some builds like Bard or any sort of trick shot build will benefit much more from this. We then have Fender Sentinels. So start with a Fender Sentinel with 2 permanently attached support items. Basically the Sentinel wears their support items and gets the benefits from them. So again, I don't like this one because it's RNG, obviously, as I've went over before. You can get 2 really bad ones and they can get 2 really amazing ones, and it's just going to change the game and just make it such an uphill battle to win the game. So there you go, guys. That's every single portal in TFT. That's what they all do. So the ones I think you should be going for if you're quite good at the game is basically ones that take out the RNG factors, ones that maybe have skill expression. Definitely just avoiding like the ones that are like prismatics and you know, emblems, things like this, because it can really just make you lose the game from the rip depending on what RNG you get. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to leave a like, subscribe, leave a little comment down below with your thoughts, and I will see you in the next one.